Today on the show, I'm happy to have Gary Puddles, CEO of Answernet. They're a full service provider of inbound, outbound, automated, and BPO call center services. So, Gary, how much revenue is the business currently doing?
We're doing between 65 and 70 million a year.
And how many employees does the operation currently have?
We have about 1,500 employees.
And it was formed in 1998, but you said it was originally formed even earlier.
So we actually traced our roots back to the 1920s when we were known at one time as the Western Union Telephone Answering Service. So over the years, we have acquired a bunch of companies with a lot of great brands.
Let's talk a little about acquisitions today then. Was that a main part of your growth strategy?
It's been a big part of our growth strategy. So we've grown both through internal sales and acquisitions, but acquisitions has been a big part of our story. We're known as a acquire underperforming companies often, where we take companies that may have had very strong client concentration or things like that and bring them into a bigger platform and help them continue and grow.
So, a company like that, do they have to be in the call center industry or is it more lead generation in a whole?
It's mostly in the contact center BPO industry. Now we've bought a few lead type generation companies, but many of them with call centers as the core. And when we're doing lead generation, we do appointment setting, and we go all the way through the sales cycles. For technology companies, for instance, we are an outsource of their inside sales function because there's many great technology companies have great technologists, not necessarily great salespeople helping them grow.
I know you're also a bit of an expert on people management. You have to be with 1,500 staff. So, what are some of those key aspects that over the years you've developed and found are very beneficial?
First thing is that you can learn something from people at every level in your organization. One of the keys to managing large groups of people is to try your best to keep arrogance out of the equation. It's really important for you to understand that the agent who is answering the phone or answering an email or answering an SMS or a chat knows as much about your business as almost any executive. So the idea is to keep yourself open to new ideas from anywhere within the organization. The second thing is to remember that particularly in the call center BPO business, we make our money one call, one chat, one email at a time. Everybody, it's really a team atmosphere. And sometimes people forget that you really need to do that. People who work in the call center industry, in the retail industry, in the restaurant industry, people who are in those roles want two things. They want security and they want recognition. It's not about necessarily making the most amount of money, but they want to be treated with respect. They want to be appreciated for good work, and they want to know that they can go home and live their life. And the next day, they're going to come in and there's going to be a company and a job for them. And I think those are the most important things for most people in this company, because while we have 1,500, most of those people are either making calls or taking calls or emails, chat, etc. And with the advent of AI, some of the landscape for communication, the way business communicate is changing. Again, the people part becomes that much more important.
Over the years of growing this company and being a part of it, was there a pivotal moment where you're like, this was a big change on our trajectory?
Wow, there's been a lot of big changes. The big change, I guess, was when my partner and I split and I bought out all of the investors and I went on it alone. What happened was my partner and I decided to go our separate ways. So in 2014, at the end of 2014, after the split, we were actually smaller than we were back in 2000. The big difference for us was that we had no investors, we had no partners, and we were back to growing the company. And since 2015, we've tripled the size of the company. So I'm really proud of the fact that we were small, and as we have become very small, I had to let a lot of people go because there was no place in two smaller companies for some of the people that existed in the bigger company. And we've been able to grow and we survived through COVID. We survived many changes. We survived a groups of acquisitions. And now we're getting ourselves back to a steady state, which will allow us to grow again in the future.
So when that happened, was it just a complete rebuild where you built from scratch again in a way?
It wasn't a complete rebuild because I had a great platform and I had a great team of people. The bigger challenge was we did it really fast, which is a theme at Answernet. We would call it Gary speed. But one of the things that I learned from my first partner was there is a real premium in business for people who are able to execute quickly. And there's a lot of been written about it, but at the end of the day, the ability to make decisions. And I'll never forget my partner originally said, "Well, you don't think about it, but decision making is like the exercise for your brain. The more you engage in it, the more you make those fast decisions, the better you become at it, and the stronger your decision making is."
To make quick decisions, do you have a certain, let's say, decision making vetted process that you use to make sure they're strong?
In terms of my decision making process, generally it's going to be, does it make economic sense? Does it fit within our core values? And then what's the effect on the people? And while I use the people third, the reality is the people equation for us is always part of it. Call centers, contact centers, BPOs are often known as big cattle places, places where people don't get the respect, places where people aren't heard. And so it's really important for us to make sure that we're thinking about the people and the core values as we make the economic decisions. So it's a balance in a way. It's a three-part balance. It's the people, it's the business. Our goals are profitability and sustainability. And when I say sustainability, I'm not talking anything about the environment. I'm talking about a company that can operate with me, without me, with almost anybody who's in a role and without anybody in a role. Because as we go back to the beginning of this conversation, we started, the company started as somebody else's company. Many of the pieces of this company started as somebody else's company. And bringing them together, I also view myself as somebody who is a steward for the employees and for the clients. And those clients are going to be serviced somewhere. Those employees are going to be working somewhere. And my job is to make sure that we are consistently delivering on our brand promise and that we're giving our client value so that my people have the security. And so it's always a balance between making good business decisions, considering the people, and being true to our core values and integrity.
When did you implement a core values system?
In 2007 or 8, my friend John Ratliff and I brought in Vern Harnish into the telephone answering service business. And we implemented Vern's mission to Mars. But it's a simple yet very effective approach to building your core values. So it starts with the premise that rather than management making some crunchy decision about what your core values are, let's figure out what your core values are from understanding your people. So we start with that. Okay. The idea here is I brought 8 people, most of which were my executives at the time, into my office. And all I told them was, we're going on a mission to Mars and I need your help. Now, I would say they thought I was crazy, but yeah, I probably am a little crazy. People have said that, so I'll accept that as a given, and I'll say that they came in and I said the basic words, which are, we've been invited to on a mission to Mars. Martian anthropologists are studying Earthbound company. We can take 5 people who represent what is best about this company. And 2 things, Martians are gaseous blobs. So no matter who we bring, they already know and think we're ugly. So it doesn't matter what the person looks like. And they don't do PowerPoint. So it's not the person who does the best PowerPoint. So now when I tell you I want 5 people who represent what's best about the company, that's what I mean. Then the 8 people wrote down the names of people who they thought represented our core values and what was best about our company. And then when we were done, we took all the people who got 1 vote and we put them aside for a second. We focused on people who got 2 or 3 votes. And we talked about what were the characteristics of those people that made us put their names down on a piece of paper. And our core values created because these were passionate people with good attitude. They were team players. They were detail oriented. They were good communicators. And most importantly, and this is how I get all the way back to this story, they were kind and likable. Being kind and likable was something that I had always wanted. I wanted to be the nicest big company in the core call center industry. And what was really cool is that we came up with this. I don't know if you can see it. There you go. That is our mascot, Pat the Fat Duck. Passion, attitude, teamwork, duck, detail oriented, good communication, and kind and likable. And we call him Pat the Fat Duck, PH, because H stands for humor. And humor is one of our silent core values.
Gary, if any of our listeners want to learn more about Answernet or get in touch, how could they do so?
They can reach us on the web at www.answernet.com. That's ANSWERNET.com. Or they can call us, go to the web, you'll find us. And my name is Gary Pudles with 1D. And you can find me pretty easily too. Love the podcast. I've been a big fan, and I really appreciate you inviting me on.
Thank you, Gary, for coming on the show, and everybody for listening to another episode of Failing Success. If you like the show, make sure to subscribe. I'm your host, Chad Galecki, and we'll see you next time.